This is TWiT.
Everybody, I mean everybody.
Everyone.
Everybody's been talking about the new game Cuphead, inspired by 1930s cartoon art. As per usual, we reserve judgment on all video games until we talk to Sam Machkovech from Ars Technica. Welcome, Sam.
Don't let them say anything bad about you. You're as beautiful as sorry.
Okay, that's
what did you do to that thing?
I'm loving it. Anyone who's listening as opposed to watching just missed me cuddling with my new Super Nintendo Classic, which we will talk about in a bit, I'm sure. But there's another equally gorgeous thing. Indeed, Cuphead is out finally. It's been teased and talked about for years, but this platforming cartoony game exists, and it is gorgeous. Anyone watching the video version of this will be lucky to see video footage of the game running, but they're not going to hear the audio with it. And this is truly a 1930s cartoon in terms of sound and motion combining to incredible effect. Now, as a video game, it plays essentially like a platformer with gunning. So I like to think of Mega Man as sort of the perfect example of where you have to run around and there's tough stuff happening and you have to shoot a little gun in order to win against incredibly tough enemies and really tricky platforming. It's all being done in this game in a style of, I'd say, a very early Looney Tunes or Merry Melodies kind of styled cartoon. Bosco is one of the cartoon series that I think of a lot with this, although this is color. Just gorgeous. Every single moment you play it looks wonderful, which is good because it is also really hard. This game could only take you about an hour and 30 minutes to beat if you are the greatest video game player ever. However, this is tough as nails, perfect, precise kind of gameplay stuff. And as a result, you're going to replay each level. If you want to truly beat the game on normal difficulty, you're going to play each level up to 80 times in order to beat it. 80. That is the amount of tries that both myself and Ars Technica's Kyle Orland went through to beat some of the game's bosses. The game is now, unlike some other Mega Man and Super Mario styled games, its focus is mostly on bosses. And I think they do this because beautiful hand-drawn bosses look way cooler for the style of game that Cuphead does than, say, just an average run around and jump on tiny little creatures. The bosses have lots of little tiny henchmen and things that come flying at you in every direction. Looks really cool, but you have to essentially learn these patterns in a way that feels, I mean, the whole thing feels like an 80s Nintendo instruction booklet. When you look at these old instruction booklets and hope that the game would ever look like these little hand-drawn little details that were put in, well, that's what happens here, but the game is as hard as an 80s Nintendo game, the kind where you would essentially get one game for $60 and play it for the whole rest of the school year.
It took me about an hour and a half to play through just the beginning where it teaches you how to play it. I tried it. Alex downloaded it on his Windows machine, and the tutorial is what I believe you people call these things. You know what?
It's funny, and that is the thing. As I tested this out with other friends, and I found that was the same issue because there are people who are looking at this and going, "This is beautiful," and the game has a quote-unquote simple mode that you can trigger in order to have simpler bosses and simpler challenges. But the tutorial even introduces stuff that is annoying and obnoxious. There's a parry system is what they call it, where you have to double tap the jump button at the perfect moment in midair when a little tiny pink thing comes at you. There's the dash maneuver you have to use to sort of bounce around. It's just, there's a few too many buttons, I feel like, to make this as accessible as I think we all kind of hoped this would be. This is not the ultimate beautiful cartoon game that anyone can jump into just because they think it looks good. No, this is a game that looks really good because you're going to be looking at it a lot if you actually invest in it. It's hard. You're going to be listening to the songs and playing through the levels over and over and over. And so the beauty and the presentation are there to help you suffer.
I played this for a little while as well, and I had a great time playing through it. And I love the art style. I'm very curious to know, because like I'm kind of reading up a little bit on how this was put together, and the art director Chad Moldenhauer just basically said, you know, this didn't get digital for a very, like, this didn't enter the digital realm for a very long time. It's all hand drawn, which I imagine takes forever when you're creating an entire game's worth of art, and it's all hand drawn to begin with. Have you seen any other games that kind of follow this path? It seems so obvious now that this would have happened already, and I can almost see like a He-Man era that bad animation from the 80s, games falling into this category. Do you think this is like the birth of a new category of games in terms of art style?
If it makes money, yeah, but that's really hard to do hand-drawn everything because, again, they aren't doing sort of the cheating that you might expect from something like He-Man. He-Man went a pretty cheap route and also used, terrible overseas labor. Don't ever read up on that if you ever want to feel good about yourself. There's a lot of work that goes into making a video game look like an instruction manual in your mind from the 80s. So if this one indeed makes money, sure. I think we've seen in the retro phase of gaming kind of the opposite, where people have said, no, we're going to go with pixelation and sort of simpler stuff to get games done more quickly. This one took 3 or 4 years and it's only $20. I mean, I almost think that they should just charge you to watch it on YouTube. Like you should just be able to pay $5 and watch someone else play it just to enjoy it as a short film. Because again, not only is there beautiful stuff and music tied in, there's also a lot of cute story and elements like that where there's lots of little jokes that are scattered around the entire time. Every time you die in a boss, you get a different one-liner making fun of how you lost, because there's so many different ways in which you can lose in these boss battles that they keep track of it. They've really built the whole thing for you to get into it and be immersed. If I was 8 years old, 12, or even 15 years old, this would be my game of the year, hands down. As a grown-up, I don't have as much patience for this, but I will say it's fair in its brutal difficulty. If that sounds anywhere near interesting to you, grab it. Otherwise, head to YouTube.
I really like the music as well. I think,
and you can buy the soundtrack.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
You can buy it for $10. I can't remember. I don't have a link handy, but I do imagine if you just type Cuphead, one word, and then soundtrack, it should be the first thing that pops up. So excellent. Definitely, if you like that 30s big band jazz style, it's really, really great soundtrack.
Yeah, I'm just warning you. It's not like watching cartoons in the 30s like we all did in the 1930s. It's a little harder than that.
Yes. Also, there's some.
Just kidding. I wasn't alive in the 1930s, Sam.
You might have had, someone who talked to you about it in the good old days.